And the reason why I did this is the same reason why I'm giving the car away. Just like that, they have a Lamborghini. There's no strings attached, so
It can be yours.
we only play to win. And there's a big, big difference there. We are willing to take risks because we know we can't lose.
VVV, everything you don't learn in school.
Welcome to another mind-blowing interview with the millionaire Sean Marcel. Sean, I would like to remind the listeners that you have built the VVV venture capital company. You are building the online university and also the digital assets platform. Can you briefly introduce those projects to a new audience and explain what they are and what is their purpose? And of course, how can people benefit from them?
So we have VVV Ventures, which is a venture capital investment company, which is the only VC company in the world which operates without any fees for any of the investors. It is more or less operated like a charity, where there's truly no incentive for anyone on the team to make money from the investors. The only way in which we make money is if the investments which we arrange turn out to be good investments. So this is one of the projects which I have started roughly 13 or 14 months ago, which at the time was something that's impossible to do because no one wanted to have another VC company, and certainly none of the competitors wanted to have one which works without fees, since all of them operate with a fee ranging from 10 to 20% on each individual investment, and then another fee. If the investment turns out to be good, then they charge you again 2%, 5%, or even more. And the entire structure, which you have seen, does not benefit the investors these companies are supposed to serve, but it's actually only self-serving because these companies make money from arranging the investments and they cash out at the moment where an investment gets presented to the investors. They don't have to wait for the investment to turn out to be good or bad. They just make money from arranging and facilitating the capital.
That's difficult to believe. When people join, I know that they think, where is the catch?
Yeah, we have seen this many times, and they ask, well, how do you guys make money and so on. We initially got $1 million from selling the NFTs, which are the entry ticket, so to speak. When you have the NFT, then you can participate in the community and in the investments. And those $1 million have been the funding to give us runway to keep operating the VC company until we then launch the digital asset platform, which you mentioned before, which is then going to be the cash flow driver, where the VC company provides a service to the digital asset company. And in this case, the service is the deal flow, and the best deal flow in the industry because it's completely incorruptible by not being contingent on the VC making money from the flow of deals. So that means we don't aim for the highest volume of deals possible, but we just aim for the very best deals. And that's something which no one else has been doing. As soon as someone has troubles accessing the very best deals possible, then they just keep arranging whatever comes their way. And the level of corruption in the VC industry is really bothersome, to say the least. It's bordering on being criminal.
Yeah. You already mentioned digital assets platform, but you mentioned this like something small, but I know that it's super big thing. It's 100x bigger than even I can say a venture capital company. So can you say anything more?
Now you mentioned the name, and whenever I hear the name, I was not 100% happy with the name. Digital asset platform is not something which has as much weight as it should have, and it's also not something that's very comfortable saying because the words don't work that well together. So now finally I came up with the right terminology for what we're building, and we're going to call it the Central Asset Exchange. So in the pitch deck, I have linked the simplified blueprint for the company, and the basis of that is a very complex blueprint where there's a lot more departments which make up the entire structure of companies. And in the middle, there's the VVV exchange. So now I took that and made it the overarching terminology for what we're building. And it's important that the name already makes it very clear that it's central. It's not something which is decentralized, because decentralization, in 99% of projects which mention decentralization, it's only an illusion. It's not helpful for the project itself, and it's not even true, because there's still someone in charge somewhere who can either ruin the project or continue to hopefully make it a success. But the idea, there's nothing which I've seen except Bitcoin is truly decentralized. So every other project, at least there's someone or a team in charge who at a minimum can ruin the reputation of the project as a whole, and then it's going to hit zero. And if something is contingent on one person, a group of people, or a construct of stakeholders or third parties, then it's not decentralized, then it's just an illusion. And the whole connotation of decentralization is not something that's actually positive. Most institutions and high net worth individuals, they don't look at decentralization as something positive, because Bitcoin's slogan, whoever came up with it, is be your own bank. People don't want to be their own bank. People hate responsibility. They hate being accountable. And then you see so many people, I think yourself included, who are in the crypto space, who get scammed, who click on the wrong thing, and then the wallet gets drained. You don't want to be your own bank. So what are we even talking about? People don't step out of the industry and think about everything for a moment. What does decentralization mean? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And the same with DAO, with the most stupid construct which you could imagine, because if you have many different people who make decisions, the masses are so easily influenced and manipulated. It's never good. And then they will always, a large group of people, they will always prefer to make the decision which benefits them the most in the short term, and not forego short-term pleasure to achieve an overarching greater long-term goal. And that means sooner or later the entire project gets ruined if you call it a DAO. And what we've seen in the crypto space is that decentralization and DAO are the most overused terms possible, and nothing good has ever come from a fucking DAO. It's the most stupid approach to doing things which I've seen. So now we have the new name, the Central Asset Exchange. It says it's central, which maybe people in the crypto space are not too fond of, but which is exactly what the institutions and governments are looking for. And we provide access to institutional quality investments for the retail investor, but there's going to be a hurdle in place so that the retail investor is not just some random person, but they have to KYC, they have to prove that depending on where they are from, that they are accredited or qualified to participate in that platform. And the aspect of it being centralized, that's something that's catered towards the institutions and the governments, and they need that. They need to have someone in charge who they can sue, someone who provides them with insurance, someone who provides them with guarantees, someone who provides them with collateral. If something is decentralized, none of that is there. And with the structures, we are not there yet, where you have a decentralized entity that's future-proof for regulations, and where the collateral and contingencies are in place in a trustless manner through smart contracts, which are not prone to get hacked, or which are not prone to get manipulated or exploited in some other way. So I'm not sure if we will ever get there, to be honest, because we've seen many projects out there where supposedly they were decentralized and they had a bunch of their tokens locked up as collateral. Then the Oracle or the bridge gets hacked, and all of a sudden a lot of the supposedly locked up tokens get liquidated, and the thing hits zero. So there are just no good solutions in place, and I think we are trying to take leaps over barriers which are better off being used to the advantage of all the stakeholders and all the shareholders. So we have it centralized, and we operate in a way in which institutions and high net worth individuals have been accustomed to already. So we don't present them with something completely new which they can't relate to. And that's important. Otherwise, you will not be able to onboard those people and those institutions. Yeah, so the way all of this comes together is the VC company is the provider of deal flows for the central asset exchange. Because to the regular, or maybe to give you a little bit a better overview for those who don't know yet. So the central asset exchange is a platform which provides institutions and retail investors access to digital assets. And digital assets are made up of, if you simplify it, of two different asset classes. You have crypto on one side and you have tokenized assets on the other side. And by 2030, crypto is going to be roughly an $8 trillion market. Tokenized assets are going to be roughly $68 trillion. And so you have this huge market in the middle, the digital assets, which together make up roughly $76 trillion by 2030. Now, then you look at all assets under management worldwide today. Then it's roughly, depending which statistics you look at, it's roughly between $100 trillion and $110 trillion. And you have roughly $60 trillion under management of institutions and $40 trillion under management by the retail investors. And what the institutions want, and I'm not going to mention any of them on the podcast, but you know a few very big brands which are synonymous with Wall Street and institutions and governments. What these institutions are trying to get a hold of is those $40 trillion which are currently either self-managed or managed by family offices by those retail investors. That's what they want. They want the retail money because right now, mainly they make up the institutional assets under management. And in order for them to get access to that, they need to have a middleman because they've tried it already. The brands which they built, they don't relate to the retail investor at all. If you look at the studies which they did and where retail investors are being asked, and when they say retail investors, that's usually high net worth individuals and ultra high net worth individuals. It's not the regular Joe. When they ask those people, which brand comes to your mind when you think about alternative investments? And the most common answer is not BlackRock, not Fidelity, it's I don't know. And you would imagine companies who have been around for decades that someone would recognize the brand. But now with the political situations worldwide, you see that most of those institutions actually have bad connotations to them. And they are definitely not where the retail investor is looking for putting their pension funds or the money which they have for pension. And right now with how everything is developing, you can see that real estate is probably not a sound investment anymore with the way prices have been developing and with how illiquid it is. Then you have a lot of political uncertainty where if you want to buy real estate, where would you even want to buy it? Where is it actually safe? And then you have other alternatives, which again, either are difficult to access or which are hard to believe that they will be future-proof or that they are not severely overpriced right now and that you're just going to buy the falling knife. And because it's that difficult, there needs to be someone who does not grant access to everything under the sun, but is very critical in what gets approved and how it gets approved, and where that decision-making process is transparent and where that decision-making process has already been proven to be something people can rely on for a variety of months. It can't just be something which you come up with as an idea and then it's something which has not been proven yet. And we're in a position where for the past 12, 13, 14 months, we've done exactly that. We've been extremely transparent. We've been very transparent with how much money we invest in each single investment, with how much we let people invest into those investments. And we've proven that we truly and genuinely only act in the best interest of the community. Whenever there was a case where I saw that people got too excited about something, then we reduced how much people were actually able to invest on a personal level. Because I don't want people to be too excited and then they overextend themselves and they put in more than they should. And then after a year, they have regrets because they realize, oh, it's still 2 more years before the investment potentially and hopefully pays off. And this degree of responsibility I've never seen anywhere from anyone. They actually do the opposite, because just like all the other institutions which arrange alternative investments, they make money from arranging those investments. They want as much of your money as possible. That's why the institutions are so hungry to get those $40 trillion. They want the money, they want the fees and the power that comes with that. And there needs to be someone who has a different motive, who's not motivated by greed or by the urge for power. Someone who has already proven that we do it differently, and that unless something is really and truly good for the people getting into it, we will not do it.
How regular Joe or normal people can become investors in your projects?
So first of all, it's very important to understand that no one, and I don't say it in a demeaning way, I'm saying it because that's the way it is. So no one wants to deal with the regular Joe. That's the truth. No one actually wants to deal with the retail investor. That's why the definition of retail investor for an institution is usually that it has to be someone who's accredited, and then the minimum investment which they have to make is $250,000, $500,000, $1 million. They don't want to deal with the peanuts of the regular Joe. And the reason why they don't want to do this, and the reason why by law, at least in some countries, many things are treated as securities where you can't even let non-accredited investors participate, is that those with the least money are the ones who understand money the least, and therefore will give you the biggest headache if you let them participate in investments. Because they are used, and again, I'm not faulting them, because it has to do with your socio-economic environment. It's either because you haven't been educated in that specific area, or you have been growing up around people who only think short term. And in order for yourself to call yourself an investor, you need to understand that the definition of investing is foregoing short-term pleasure to then in the future hopefully have more of what you passed on. So meaning you have $100, you pass on spending those $100 today, and you put them into something else where those $100 will not be accessible for 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then maybe, and it could go to zero, maybe after those 5 years they have $1,000. And most people, they think they want to invest in something, but the moment they realize, oh shit, this is actually illiquid, and then after 1 year they need the $100 again because they don't have any capability to make new money, that's where they struggle. And that's when those people then turn into a headache for whoever has arranged the investment. And that's why it's a very slippery slope to wanting to do good for the retail investor, but then he gets in and then he's an absolute pain in the ass to deal with. And that's why you mentioned the VVV University. It's not possible to let the retail investor invest without educating him, not just on money, but on everything else, because everything goes hand in hand. You cannot understand foregoing short-term pleasure in one specific area only and ignore other areas of your life. That just means whatever your default is in the rest of your life eventually is going to stain the financial area as well again, and then you're going to get impatient, you're going to make the wrong decisions, you're going to make emotional decisions, you will not be stoic enough to go through a bear market, and you will ruin the opportunities for yourself. If you show up in this community of investors and you're the only guy with the wrong mindset, then either the other ones are going to lift you up and they're going to help you to understand everything better, or you're going to refuse to understand everything and you're just going to get fed up with other people thinking differently and you're going to leave. And this is it's very important, and it's very useful because it keeps we don't have any issues or drama because people know exactly what they get into. And let's say we have an investment come up where there's only a few people who will be able to get in because it's a limited ticket size. When people get the fear of missing out and they try to participate in something just because other people do it and they don't even know what it is, then I tell them, listen, there's no shame in not participating. You can just pass on this one because not all opportunities are for everyone. And the way we operate, it's never going to be that one single thing which if you miss that one, then you will never be successful. It's consistency. Just as you need to be consistent with everything else in your life, we need to be consistent by not just providing one enormous opportunity. No, we have to deliver a bunch of them, because we don't want to be a one-trick pony. We want to be able to repeat our success. That's the only way in which it can be sustainable. And it also means we can't spread ourselves too thin. We can't do 100 different investments, because then it doesn't matter if one does well, because the majority of the other ones are going to fail. So we have to be extremely diligent, and we have to do our very best in saying no.
So if you can, at the end, just summarize, if somebody from our listeners wants to join today, which path they can join and how?
So the easiest way to join VVV is to go on, well, joinvvv.com, like the name suggests. And that's the doorway into the university. Unfortunately, I haven't come up with a better name than university, because most people don't have the best memories of the educational system. But the university is structured in a very different way than what you are used to learning new skills and experiencing life in a different way. And the main part of the university is completely free, so you can just join. There's no strings attached. The Discord community gets streamed live onto the website, so you don't even need to sign up for anything. You don't need to click a button. You can literally just go onto the website and see what's going on in the server. You can check out our YouTube channel, and you can get a very good impression for what's waiting once you join the Discord server, or once you potentially would decide to sign up and become an active part of the mentorship groups and the accountability calls and everything else which you have to offer.
Excellent. Sounds great. How have you utilized current trends in your projects, such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, you already mentioned a bit, and e-commerce?
Well, e-commerce, we don't use at all, to be honest, because see, most projects out there, most brands, they have some merch to sell, and they always go the easiest route, which is printing hoodies and t-shirts. But if we start to implement e-commerce, then it has to be on par with our standards, and then it's going to be cufflinks and ties and pocket squares, and it's going to be high quality, and it's going to be expensive, because it's worthwhile for people wanting to strive to be able to afford something. And by just making a hoodie for $10 and selling it for $50, just because everyone can buy it, and just because that's the easiest way for you to generate, in my opinion, to squeeze out additional money from the people who follow you, that's not something which I want to do. Now, when it comes to AI, the art which we probably will use for the new NFT collection is going to be created by AI. But it's not just not something which you would see on Midjourney, for example, but it runs on a computer which is so fucking expensive to run that I'm even hesitant to utilize it too much, because I'm always, to get started with, no matter which department, no matter what area of the business, to get started, I'm always involved, because I need to be the one who sees exactly what's going on. I need to be in the trenches. I need to understand the processes completely in order for me to then judge what's going on, and for me to hold other people accountable. So when it comes to AI and for the generation of the art, it's a very complex process, and it needs a lot of computing power. So it runs on an Amazon cloud computer, but it's so expensive to run. I think, I'm not sure how many hours we ran it, but when I started to first make the first concept for the art, I think it cost me like $3,000 or so in 1 month. And the computer didn't run the entire month. It was for a few weeks, which we were exploring different options. But there's just no way. The art which we have created so far, it looks so much better than what any artist could possibly create by hand, that there's just no way that a human being can compete anymore with AI. It's impossible. Especially when let's say someone could maybe match how detailed and how congruent one picture is, but it's going to be 10,000. It would take a human being its entire life to create something like that. And even with the AI, it's quite complex, and it takes a lot of time to do this and to make it really the flawless and the best possible art which you could imagine. For it also to remain creative, because the AI is only as creative as you input. But the opportunities which I see in AI, especially when it comes to design and art, I mean, it's mind-boggling. And unfortunately, I'm glad that this happens, because artists are by far the worst to work with, because they don't like pressure, and then under pressure they can't be as creative. So as soon as you have some tight deadlines and a high output, that's where they fold and where they become less of an asset and more of a liability and more of a pain in the ass to deal with. And then of course we use ChatGPT on a daily basis. Let's give you a tangible example to come up with catchy titles for YouTube videos or for YouTube shorts. At the moment we upload 2 shorts per day. So you need a title and a description. And at some point you just run out of creativity. And then it's good to be able to brainstorm with AI to give you something that's catchy and for you to save some of your computing power for other things which are maybe more important on that day.
Maybe AI will not replace people, but for sure can replace people who are not using AI, because the technology is super powerful. So thank you for this insight. What strategies and tactics have you employed to build and grow your brand, considering changing trends and consumer preferences?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up again. So if you take the success of the UFC, for example, the UFC initially was a company which no one wanted, because it was a brutal sport. It was not even a sport, it was just brutal and trouble for people to watch. And that was not something which initially anyone wanted to have on television. And then once Dana White and with his business partners, once he invested millions and millions of dollars to hopefully make this success, they still ended up at a point where they were very close to failing. And the thing which rescued them at that time was something that had, at first glance, nothing to do with the brand of the sport at all. It was a reality TV show which they came up with, The Ultimate Fighter. And that's what saved the brand. And when you look into, and you can probably find it on Google, if you look at the brand cycle of the UFC, you will understand that the reality show is an integral part of the entire brand. And without the reality show, something that sounds maybe a little bit ridiculous, the entire company would have failed. Now, you can also take another example in Apple. I think it was sometimes in the 1980s, where Apple also was on the verge of failing, and it became less and less relevant in its industry. And Steve Jobs had an idea of launching a big ad, a very creative ad, and the ad was supposed to get published on the Super Bowl. So they purchased 3 slots on the Super Bowl to show that ad. And he worked with the director to create this ad. And the ad was extremely creative, and it was not related to the product or the brand of Apple whatsoever. It was, if you can look it up, just put into YouTube the Apple Super Bowl ad. No one in the right mind would ever allow this to get published. And of course, this is exactly how the board of directors thought and how everyone else thought, except the director and Steve Jobs. So against the opinion of everyone else, they still went ahead and pushed this ad through. And Apple was so scared, they even tried to sell off the Super Bowl slots for the ads which they had. So they got rid of one, and then they couldn't sell the second one. So they had still those 2 left. And then they streamed the ad. And it turned out that for whatever reason, this ad saved Apple, because it was so different from everything else anyone had ever seen. It truly underlined the statement of think different. And you have to be able to think outside of the box, and you have to understand the current trends, but you can't fall victim to wanting to only operate within whatever is currently accepted as normal or as the current trend by society. You have to come up with something new. And one thing which we are going to do is I'm going to give away my car. And we're going to do it on social media, and there will be no strings attached to this. And we're going to do it through the NFT collection, because it's a more fun way and it's a more easy way for us to facilitate everything. But we're going to do it through the new NFT collection. So we have 10,000 NFTs, and one of the NFTs, after it gets revealed, is going to be the representation of the Lambo. And then the person who has this NFT I will fly the person out to Dubai, I will sign over the car, and then just like that, they have a Lamborghini. There's no strings attached. So whoever gets the NFT, they can either sell the NFT, then someone else can take it and get the Lambo. If they don't want to have the car in their name, they can just come and drive the car and then do whatever with it. I don't care. And no one has ever done this. So whenever you see a giveaway in the digital asset space, they give away their tokens, or they do some other things where it's always something that's intangible, and it's always something which you can only earn through brainless activities like engagement farming on social media, or some stupid tasks which you then have to do in the Discord community, or through maybe running a node, or somehow helping in the beta testing of the product. But it's never something that's truly made in the best interest of the person accomplishing the tasks. The tasks which are being set up for people to follow are only in the best interest of the project itself. In our case, the easiest way to earn the whitelist spots will be to go through the lessons in the university, which benefit me not at all whatsoever. If you watch the movie The Founder, and you study everything that happens in the movie, and you answer the questions which you have prepared, which help you understand and observe it in the right way, there's no value in that for me at all. And that's the whole point of what we do. Everything has to be in the best interest of the person getting involved in it. That's the only way in which you can actually become someone that's trustworthy. Of course, it's easy for you to always operate within what's the best for you, but how does that make you trustworthy? How does any of the companies out there, if they always do everything in their best possible interest, and then they tell you, well, but you also benefit from it. Well, but then it's still 90% of it is self-serving. So what does the relationship actually look like? Is the institution or is the business here and the customer here? Or is the customer here and the business is here and the business is actually serving the customer? Mm-hmm. And it's the only way in which it can work. The business has to come second to the customer.
You are not only consider people as clients, but there is a strong also brotherhood and all this stuff regarding relationship and giving the more and the best things to the people who are joining the community. So that's a good point.
And see, that's one more thing which I want to say, because we have a short out there which talks about the statistics of lottery winners. So if someone wins in the lottery, after 4 or 5 years or so, they lose all the money again. They even have less money than before, which then begs the question, why would you give away a car? Probably the same thing is going to happen. Now, the big difference here is that if you give away a car, and then of course it depends who's going to win it, right? But let's say a normal person wins the Lambo, and then I fly them to Dubai, and then they get to drive the car. Then they have a few options, right? They decide to keep the car, and then they will quickly realize having this car is actually quite expensive because fuel is expensive, insurance is expensive, if it needs service, it's expensive. If you scratch one of the rims, it's going to be expensive. If you have an accident, it's going to be expensive. So the whole thing brings a lot of headache with it, which means if you want to stay in a position where you can keep driving the car, you need to get your act together. In order for you to be able to enjoy the car, you need to put in the work somewhere else. So even though at the moment you might not be able to afford the car yourself yet, you can definitely very easily afford to drive the car. But now the question is, how bad do you want it? Will you win the car and then you will be lazy and then you will lose the car again? Or let's say you win the car and then you decide to sell the car. That's going to be an important lesson too, because selling a car, especially if it's an expensive car, you have to be extremely diligent. You have to be super, super diligent to not get ripped off, to get paid the right amount, to make sure that you offer the car in the right way and you offer it to the right people. So this is also a very valuable learning experience. And because you have to be very smart in how you do it, the person who then maybe gets the money from selling the car, they will have a different relationship to the money which they got than if they just won the money randomly. There's a learning process involved, and there's also work involved in actually getting the money off the car. And then, maybe they will get ripped off by whoever they get in touch with. It's very likely for this to happen. But even then it's an important lesson, because whoever gets the car, if they can't keep the car, if they can't keep the money off the car, then only because they made a mistake, and then they can take that mistake and learn from it. Let's say someone wins $1 million. Well, it has to be a streak of mistakes where after a while you lose all the money. That's why it usually takes 4 or 5 years for people to lose the money, because it's usually not one mistake which they make, but it's a cascade of mistakes which they made. With the car, it's very different, because I know whoever wins the car, they want to drive the car. And that's where the first mistake can happen. If you're sitting for the first time in a car with 700 horsepower, if you crash the car, then it's gone.
Yeah. So let me clarify this thing. So you want to give this car forever to somebody? I mean, permanently. It's not like giving this for 1 year or 2 years and then it will go to another person.
No, it's for real. They actually get the car. Let's say you have your first 3-4 months when you start your own business or you started as a freelance. You have your first few months where you have been successful. Save some of the money and spend the money on renting a Lamborghini for 1 day. I want you to sit in a supercar and feel the leather, feel the steering wheel, drive the car, and feel how it feels like to have a car like this. Because most people, they already have subconsciously admitted to themselves that they will never be in a position where they can afford a car like this. That also means the moment they see a car like this on the street, they have the first feeling which they have is negative. Mm-hmm. And I've never ever seen a child which had a negative feeling towards the car. Every single child, no matter if it's a boy or girl, they always look in awe at the car, and everyone gets excited, everyone is happy when they see the car. So something happens between you being a child and you becoming an adult, where all of a sudden now you don't like all those nice things.
Yeah, you join the reality, and the reality is that most people have troubles in order to pay the bills monthly. So the thing
exactly,
is
but do you want to be most people, or do you want to be someone who can afford the car?
So what I'm saying, that then when they see Lambos or some supercar, they think, oh, this guy, he needs to steal or do some other things related to corruption, or you know what I mean.
And it's very interesting that most people, they don't see a car like this and think, this guy must have made all the right decisions in his life to be able to afford this. They always think something bad, and they always have some, they think this is the money of his father or inherited. Or They always have some coping mechanism to not give the guy the credit which he deserves. And when I was a child, it was not even a car like this. When I saw a Porsche, to me it was a big deal. And I wanted to know how was this guy able to afford this car? And I would have quit school like this if I would have had an opportunity to learn from someone who actually has something nice, which I wanted. Which I think, if you can learn from a person like this, you're so much more motivated because they already have something that you want. So of course you want to learn. You sit in school or you sit in university, you look at your professor, you don't really even want to be like this guy. The guy doesn't even have a lifestyle which you want. So of course it's difficult to learn and listen, because those people don't have anything important to say, and no credibility whatsoever. They have a piece of paper with CV. They have a nagging wife at home which is oppressing them. What could I possibly learn from this person?
Yeah. Okay, so can you just say the full name or the full model of the car? Because you just said Lambo.
Okay, so it's a 2023 Huracan Evo all-wheel drive with a straight pipe, decat, custom-made front lip, custom wing, custom-made rims, and many, many more details. It has a secret button which opens the valves for the exhaust, or makes it pretty quiet, to be honest. And it has a tune on it as well, so the pops and bangs are much louder than it is stock. And it's a perfect car. Right now it makes around 700 horsepower. So the stock engine makes 640, I believe. It's by far the best possible car I ever drove.
We will show this car right now.
I think my first supercar was the GLE 63S Coupe, which still is one of my most favorite cars. I think 604 horsepower, if I'm not mistaken. It's a SUV. It's a tremendous car, super fast for an SUV, and it's super fun to drive. Has nice sound. Then my second car was the AMG GTC. Then I had the E63S. Then the GT63S, which I crashed, then the M4 competition, M8 competition, and when I was in the US, I had a Corvette C8 at the Lamborghini Aventador, the old one. Well, in Dubai at the F8 Spider, the 812 Superfast, then of course the old Huracan, the new one, the SV, the SVJ, the Rolls-Royce Cullinan. I think like most men, I just liked loud and fast cars. So of course, literally the first money I had when I was a freelancer, I used for getting the car, not for an expensive apartment. I didn't give a shit how the apartment looked like in which I was living. I just wanted to have a loud and fast car. So this was how I spent my first money, which I got. And it was good to do it this way because I got so much joy out of driving the car that it motivated me to not lose my income stream, to not be able to afford the car anymore. And it was not a wise use of my money, if you look at it financially, because I was just burning all the money which I made, at least when I started out, when whatever I made was what the car cost. But it was a necessary experience for me to broaden my horizon, because once you drove the AMG, once you got used to driving a car with 600 or 700 horsepower, that's when you get comfortable to then even jump into a real supercar, which is more exotic, which is more expensive, where GT63S, which I crashed, I think the retail price was $250 or so. So it's still an expensive car to crash. But if you do it with a Lambo, it's another category. And it's important for you to just get comfortable with having something which other people can't have, and get comfortable with those people then looking at you. And potentially, especially while I was having it and driving it in Germany, I mean, people don't look at you in a nice way. It's something which is actually frowned upon. And you get in the E63S, you get away with it because it looks like a taxi, but it's actually a hidden supercar. But something like the GTC, that really stands out, and you do get compliments from it. But overall, the connotation which you have in most Western countries is not something that's positive. Most people actually look at you with envy and jealousy, and they don't like you showing off. I'm driving something which I drive it for me, something which I do for myself because I like doing it. It's not something which I do for other people, for them to have good or bad feelings towards it. But it's important to go through this stage of this becoming normal for you, because right now, if you're sitting at home and you have a normal car, maybe 200 horsepower sounds like a lot to you, but it's all about the standards which you have for yourself. Once you get used to driving a car with 600 horsepower, the moment you go back, you think, Jesus Christ, this is how the difference feels between the normal life and the good life. And of course, the car is just a representation. It's just a metaphor for everything else that comes along with it. But you always want to have the best. Why would you want to aim for a successful life and then settle for a car which no one wants, or just something that performs on an average level? It's all about setting different standards for yourself. And even me, now with the car, with the Lambo, one of my earliest thoughts was, oh man, this car needs more horsepower. So there's one of the tuners I worked with, they also do the turbos for the Lamborghinis. They can get the car to 1,000 horsepower, which sounds absolutely ridiculous. But once you've gotten, after 5 years of driving cars with 600 or 700 horsepower, then you think, is there not something which is faster? And that's a great metaphor. Maybe this is even a better story to end this topic. So in every single car which you have driven so far, and it starts with the driving school, with your driving lessons. They tell you before you switch the lanes, you have to look over your shoulder, right?
Yes.
Because there's other people who are faster than you who might get in the way when you switch the lane. So in the Lambo and in most other supercars, in Ferraris, in the McLaren, if you look over your shoulder, what do you see? Nothing.
Difficult to see.
You look against the back of the car because you're sitting in a sports car. If you look like this, there's nothing to see. So why are those cars even legal to drive, and why are those cars made in a way where you can't even look over your shoulder? Well, because you're supposed to go fast. You're supposed to be faster than everyone else. And if you're faster than everyone else, you don't need the rear view mirror. You don't need to look over your shoulder There's no one there. You're the only guy. You're the only guy who's steadfast. And that's a metaphor for life. Most of you try to lead your lives looking into the rearview mirror and trying, oh my God, hopefully there's no one else coming. And then you see a guy coming up behind you in the Ferrari, and then you have to get out of the way, and that's when you get stressed. The guy who's overtaking everyone else, the guy's completely relaxed. And that's why and I've been there, I'm not looking down on anyone. At the lowest levels of society, you have the most stress. At the highest levels of society, even though you have a lot more responsibility and your life seems much more stressful, you are so much more relaxed because all the small issues, they don't bother you. You have huge problems, but those huge problems, they inspire you, and they also come with bigger rewards.
You use some examples of big names, big companies. Coming back to the point, in the digital age, how do you plan to outperform your competition, who have very strong teams and the best IT minds? So let's say that one of the advertising method would be giving away a car, but what about the foundation of what you are building right now?
The team is only as good as the leader. And if you look at all the leaders out there, of every single institution, of all of those big names, go put in one of their names into YouTube and watch a recent interview with these guys. They look like they are half dead. They cannot speak with passion, and they certainly don't look like leaders. They can't even raise their voice anymore. They don't have any fucking energy. They are not there to inspire anyone. And those companies, those institutions, they have become so big and so slow and so complicated, filled with politics and bureaucracy. They can't pivot. They are not agile. They are not in a place where they can even compete with us. Because, well, we might look small, but being small also makes us efficient. And being efficient and speed combined means you have the capability to kill the competition. The reason why Blockbuster didn't become Netflix is because they've been big, slow, and arrogant. And that's exactly what you see with all the institutions out there. They're all too big, too slow, too arrogant. The guy in charge is not a leader, and they will not be able to keep up with us. It's not about me being afraid that maybe we can't compete with them. There's no competition for us. We are not the ones who have to be afraid. These guys are too arrogant to even notice us, to even be bothered with what we do. And I'm also not going into the industry that's why I'm not saying any names. I'm not going into the industry with the intention of attacking all of those people. I'm approaching the industry by partnering up with the biggest possible institutions and clients and governments and so on, because what we have to offer, that's of value to them. But it has to be very clear that the power dynamic is that we offer something which they want, which they can't do themselves, where they need us. It's not the other way around. We don't need them. We don't need to convince anyone to be a part of this. So the same pitch which we have for the clients which you're onboarding, it's the exact same pitch which we have for the investors. It's about, what can you do for us today? Why would I want you to be on board? What can you do to convince me of letting you be a part of what we do? We don't need anyone. That's the whole premise. The fucking team means nothing. You have a team, then you have some idiot in charge who doesn't lead his team the right way, who doesn't let the team prosper. The team is just gonna flatline. Doesn't matter who it is. Whoever joins the company, they love to have a comfortable working environment. They don't like to be under pressure. And with the whole PC bullshit and the entire culture everywhere getting soft and getting diverse and all this crap, that only breeds people being more and more comfortable, and they need safe spaces and all of this fucking garbage. No one is used to working in a high pressure, stressful environment anymore, where people are being held accountable, where there are very high expectations of you. Anyone who comes into our company, they have to perform from day one. And everyone also knows, if they stop performing, it does not matter how much they like you. You stop performing, you're out. And that's why the few people who don't trust me, they don't trust me because they know for sure if they become of less value to the company, if I see them once not doing something that's in the best interest of the company and the clients, they are gone. And of course, that means they can't trust me for the personal relationships or for nepotism to protect them. That's why you can't trust me, because I'm only concerned about efficiency. And the reason why it has to be this way is because the moment you accept the personal excuses of any employee, you compromise what's best for the business and for everyone who's a stakeholder. That includes shareholders, clients, anyone who is a part of the company. You prefer to compromise them so that some other asshole can have the excuse for not doing the work which they're expected to do. That's why I don't give a shit about people's reasons. Even if someone's mother dies tonight, where are the things which you were supposed to do today, which you have to deliver tomorrow? As a leader, you have to be unreasonable. I don't care about people's reasons, because everyone always has a fucking reason for everything. And that's where you have to be uncompromising and ruthless and brutal. And I know for sure, by design, in the way these institutions and competitors have grown, they cannot be that ruthless. That means they cannot keep up with us. All those inefficiencies, all those excuses which their employees have, which they bring to work, there are plenty of them. That makes them slow, makes them inefficient, and that pushes them into a position where sooner or later the opportunity will be here, ready to seize, and all these guys will still ponder and wonder and discuss, is this the right move to do? They are too afraid, and they started to play, not to lose. We only play to win, and there's a big, big difference there. We are willing to take risks because we know we can't lose. Every single decision which I made so far, every single step which we took, it always was the right thing to do. It always made us more successful. And these institutions, they've made mistakes in the past. They have a lawsuit here. They have stuff going on here. They have to be careful to be equal between men and women, and to have enough diversity in their team, and all of this fucking garbage, which it just makes all this political bullshit just makes the company inefficient. I don't care if my team would only be women. I would be fine with it. If it's only men, I'm fine with that too. It's whoever's the best possible person for that position gets in charge. I don't give a fucking shit about any quota or any other garbage. I want the best possible people, and I want ice cold killers. I want people who don't need excuses, people who do exactly what they are supposed to do. And the definition of leadership is me getting you to do what I want you to do when you're supposed to do it, and not when you feel like it. That's leadership. And when you're leading from the front, when you're always doing what you said you would do, then other people will strive to follow that exact same path. But if you look into those interviews with those CEOs, then you will quickly realize, if you look into their past interviews and what they have promised, they do the exact opposite of what they told you. They tell you, oh, we're going to raise the salaries, or we're going to do this and that, and then they do the exact opposite. Or they tell you, yeah, your jobs are secure, and then they downsize. Initially, when I started the business, I made the mistake that I had people on the team which I knew were soft, and I thought, yeah, maybe they can handle it, or maybe it doesn't matter. The problem with these people is they are so afraid of being disliked, or they are being so afraid of other people's opinions, that they would rather lose their integrity than standing up for the right thing. Which then also means they are afraid to say their own opinions. And when you go through life and you always try to stay in the middle, if you always try to be vanilla and not rub anyone the wrong way, that means you will lose your integrity. There's no possible way for you to always be in between. You have to stand for something, or you will die for nothing. And that's what I've seen times and times again. And of course, it's my own mistake, but I'm not going to do this mistake ever again. And that's why I have no problem speaking my mind on social media, or on interviews with potential people who want to work on in the business, because I would much rather have someone hate me and still want to work with me because what we do is so great. I don't want people to get involved based on liking. And that's how most people operate, where they breed a culture in the company where everyone comes together because they like each other. I want everyone to come together because the big vision is so big, they cannot ignore us. They cannot stand on the sidelines. They want to be a part of it.
What has been your biggest challenge in building your empire so far, and how did you overcome it?
My biggest challenge so far was balancing being completely unreasonable with being still reasonable enough to not repel people who actually do their best and mean well. And that's something which, for me, is very difficult to balance, because I'm extremely demanding and I expect everyone to be like me. But I also have to understand that whoever I bring onto the team, they cannot ever have the exact same passion and commitment for what we do, because it's still my company. I founded it. So I already invested more than a year into the company. And I'm the only one who knows the big vision, who knows every single milestone along the way. So if I bring on people who have less of an attachment to the company and also don't see the big vision yet, then I have to understand that they will not be willing to truly sacrifice everything else in their life to fully commit to the company. And of course, now talking about it, it sounds ridiculous, but when you are in the trenches and you're fighting for your business and it's day-to-day high pressure and high stress environment, then you can lose sight of other people's needs and unfortunately people's feelings. Some people maybe need a little bit more forgiveness and appreciation than what I would need on my own. And so one important lesson is, although I have always operated like this, but it is something which I have been more conscious of, is as the one in charge, everything that goes wrong is your fault. Everything that goes right is someone else's credit. And that's the way it is.
Your fault in this is my fault. So my as a leader. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. Anything that goes wrong is always your fault as the leader, and everything that gets accomplished, you always have to give the credit to whoever was involved. Even if you did more, even if maybe you did most of it, you have to allow other people to shine, and you have to be sure that your ego does not get into the way. You have to be fine with being the bad guy and with being disliked, because the moment everything you do leads to other people liking you, probably you're not leading the business with the discipline and the expectations and the accountability and the responsibility which you are expected to exert as a leader. So I now better understood that I would rather make the difficult decision and be disliked for it in the short term and then be praised for it in the long run than putting off a hard decision today to see if maybe it can work out, to compromise on my own expectations and standards and values, to then try to be more accommodating of people's feelings, but also balancing that with not being too unforgiving and too uncompromising, where if someone has some personal hardship, then there have to be consequences. It can't be at the expense of the company, but it's not enough for me to ostracize someone from the community or from the company completely.
Yeah, I think that this topic is crucial and it's not easy. I think that we also are a bit different here because on the one hand, you need to have some particular traits in order to lead the company. Very often you use the word ruthless or some different stuff, different traits. So they are important because otherwise you will be scammed or you will need to close the company very soon, etc., etc. But on the other hand, you need to deal with people, so also with their emotions. For instance, here I divide the positive and negative motivation. And in my life, I use negative motivation often, but I noticed that it did not work. So for instance, even my wife hits me, but you need to motivate me in positive way, not in negative. So it's something what is not easy because it's like two worlds. Yeah, you have business and you have people who you really care of, because I know that you care about the people. That is one of the most important things for you.
Yeah, it's for me, important lessons always come from studying people who have done it better or different or in a better way. So Marcus Aurelius, for example, is a very interesting character to study. He is one of the 5 good emperors. Then you have Alexander the Great, and then you also need to have negative examples like Stalin, for example, who was one of the worst, maybe in the worst possible leader to ever exist. Then you have people like Genghis Khan, and all of these characters are important to study because you never just want to study the good, you also want to study the bad and understand what made them bad. Why have these people been leaders which, whatever they touched, turned into devastation, misery, and death? You can't just learn from the positive examples. You also need to steer clear of all the pitfalls. And you just have to be aware of the whole spectrum. So you have one extreme here, the other extreme there, and then you don't want to be in the middle, but you also want to be at the very extreme, because then the closer you get to the extreme, the more diminishing the returns are going to get, and eventually the returns get smaller and smaller and smaller, and the risk of you destroying what you're passionate about, what's important to you, that becomes greater. So you need to, that's what people don't understand about balance. They see this extreme, they think balance is here. But actually the balance is as close to one extreme as necessary and as far away of that extreme as reasonable. Mm-hmm. That's the actual balance. Because you don't want to be completely lazy and useless, but I also don't want to be a machine who has no joy in life at all. You need to be close to being very efficient and to be a high achiever, but you don't want to lose your joy for life.
Yeah, that's a good definition, I think. What are 3 essential qualities or traits and that you believe every successful millionaire should possess?
The 3 most important traits a millionaire should possess are not making the $1 million the goal. The goal has to be success in your character. It can't be the success that's relating to your bank account. The person who falls in love with the process will go farther than a person who falls in love with the goal. So the main priority is for you to not be concerned about how can I become a millionaire. The goal should be how can I have the most fulfilling life possible. And if you look at life, if your life goes like this, then you think about people in the hospital and you look at the heart monitor and then you realize, oh, a flat line actually means someone is dead. So that can't be my expectation of life. And that's what most people actually want. They want a safe and comfortable life, but that's what it means. And that's how most people feel. Most people are already dead. They don't actually live. So then we have to think here, so what do we want from life? Do we want it to go down? Of course not. Do we want it to go only up? Yeah. Even that might become boring, because then it's just a flat line at an angle. So how does life have to be? Life has to be like this. And the only thing you have to be aware of is that whenever you have a low point, that low point has to be higher than the previous low point. So you want your life to go like this.
Exactly. So it's going up, but of course it's not possible to not having some failures, mistakes, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a very good one. What about 2 other traits or approaches?
Good habits. Because good habits are not just about doing the right things, it's about avoiding the wrong things. As long as you stay on track with a good routine, it's not necessarily that whatever you do in that routine is so mind-blowing or incredibly different than what everyone else is doing. It's about this routine does not allow you to do all the other shit which everyone else is doing. Which means, so to give you a very simple example, I can talk about my own routine. And my routine at the moment looks like this. I get up at 7. I go to the gym at 8. Then I'm home about 10 a.m. And from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. I work. And in between I have 30 minutes for dinner, and that's pretty much all the time which I spend not focusing on work. Let me dive into it in a little bit of detail. So I get up, I work, and then I spend consciously 30 minutes shaving and grooming and making sure I look good. Not because I'm narcissistic, not because I want to look into the mirror and see that I'm looking good. I'm spending the time because if I'm not taking care of myself, no one else will. And if I want to project that I actually care about other people, well, then I have to care about myself. If I'm not caring about myself, how could I care about anyone else? So I make a conscious effort in taking the time to shave every single day, make sure I look good, make sure I smell good before I leave the house. Not for other people to see, but because I want to have done the work on my own. So I can see, okay, now I am presentable and I'm leading as a good example. And then when someone meets me and they ask me, how can I get my life in order? Then I tell them, start with the very small things. Start with shaving yourself every single day and start by taking care of yourself. You're not even willing to eat an apple per day because it could potentially keep you from all the illness and all the issues which you're going to have in life. You're not even willing to do that. You're just going to ignore the most basic thing, but then you want to double down on which supplement and how can I take additional medication and nootropics and all this fucking garbage. You're not even willing to do the very basic stuff. And then you always already try to get fancy with everything else. Life truly is about getting the basics right. Good example is when you start boxing, you spend time on the basics. You don't jump ahead and someone teaches you how to be like Mike Tyson. You start with the basics. You have to get the basics right. You start, how do I stand? How do I position my feet? No one even goes right to the punches. They just tell you, how do you distribute your weight? And that's how you have to approach life. Start with all the basics. Ignore everything else. If you want to get in shape, ignore all the protein powders and supplements. Ignore everything else but the basics. The basics will get you so much farther. And that's why the habits are important, because they keep you focused. It has to be like a horse with the blinders. Get rid of all the noise and all the shit that's around you and start focusing on the basics. In my routine, I do nothing fancy. I don't take any special supplements. I don't have any special mattress to sleep on or any heart monitor while I do my workouts. I don't track my macros. I'm just following the very basics which make a good life and lead to a healthy human being.
So you will become the person depending on what actions you repeat. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that habits and routine is about repeating stuff, repeating actions.
Yeah, you made an important point. Because habits are never just thoughts.
Yeah.
Habits curate action. So, see, good habits, they make you confident. Because if you can stick to a routine without exceptions, then you get used to doing what you tell yourself you would do. People have the New Year's resolutions. And then they tell themselves, okay, on January 1st, I start to do this, and then everything is going to be different. Then January 1st comes, they either don't start or they start and then they quit after a week. And that's again where we say, if you fall in love with the goal, you're going to give up. You have to fall in love with the process. That's why I can outcompete everyone else, because I just love competing. I'm not after the prize. I'm not after any specific achievement. I love doing this. That's the whole point of everything. And without action, your aspirations, your ambitions, your talent, your drive, nothing means anything. You have to be able to put in the work. And I would rather have someone who is less talented and less intelligent, who is willing to put in the work, than have someone who is incredibly talented and incredibly intelligent, but he can't commit to putting in the work. And you've seen this, and I think for those who are into martial arts, there's many UFC fights out there where you know for sure who was more talented, but the other guy put in the work and didn't get distracted with partying or with the money or with drugs or anything else. And this guy came into the ring hungry. And even though he was the worst fighter, he won. And that's the same in life. Whoever puts in the work, you will always lose to the person who is willing to put in more work.
Yeah.
There's two stages. And one is called the thinker And you know the favorite statue where it's someone thinking?
Mm-hmm.
The other statue is called the doer. And there's no statue. There's just the name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's life. Because those who think, they never do. And those who do, they always win. So I agree with you. It has to be the habits first, and then you have to be able to take action.
What was your biggest success so far?
My biggest success so far was attracting everyone we have in the community. Because everything else that's easily replicable and could also be done by some other people, which means it's not that special and it doesn't mean that much. But the people, and I can only give myself a limited credit on that, but the people which I was able to attract into the community, they are, to an extent only, they are an extension of my personality, my values, or my vision. And even the people who are very critical of me, still there's something which they saw in me, or something which I made them feel, or something which I allowed them to see, which attracted them to me, where they said, okay, this guy is doing something different. He's doing something interesting. I want to be a part of this. I want to see where this is going. And I think this is by far my biggest achievement. And this is also the achievement which makes everything else that's to come possible. And which gives everything else that's to come a true meaning. Because my big vision, or part of my big vision, is not just to have a big company. My vision is not just to have the biggest company on the planet. My vision is to have my own civilization, create my own society, create something that's going to last for hundreds and hundreds of years, something that truly has a positive impact on the planet, something which I can proudly say, this is my legacy. I want my children to carry on with this. I want other people to care and nurture what I have created. And I know with how high I've set my goals, I know there's no way that I can achieve all the goals I've set out during my lifetime. So I know that what I'm creating today, eventually it has to be carried by other people. And of course, I would wish for my son to carry on with my legacy, but it's still going to be contingent on this person being surrounded by the right people. So the single biggest achievement which I have is to be lucky and blessed enough to have the right people around me.
Yeah. And in this big dream, in this state or in this society, which you will build in the future, and there will be certain rules, there will be trust. How you want to build this kind of society? Because what I understood is not only your family, but it's also people who are not connected with you by blood.
So just like we have it already in the community to a large extent, it has to be, and not totally, because everything, all the great empires which we had in history, there was always one person in charge who drove everything. And there have been good leaders. Of course, they have been more rare than the bad ones, because sooner or later most got corrupted. But there have been tremendous individuals who did not get corrupted, neither by money nor by power. So it's on me to, first of all, prove that throughout my journey. And that's why I slightly get off on the fact that I just always do the right thing. Proving people wrong, which is something which I like to do, and something that probably to most people is satisfying to a certain degree. If you have people who doubt you, and then you continue to deliver and you continue to do exactly the opposite of what they were accusing you to do or what they were expecting you to do, that's quite interesting to observe how these people then evolve and how they eventually go from haters to people who want to be a part of what you're building. Where you're 100% right is that the moment I cease to exist is when it's either up to the next person in charge or up to the structure to carry on the integrity of everything that has been built. And right now we are luckily in a situation where we have the blockchain and we are capable to make things like the monetary system completely trustless. The monetary system can be free of corruption, manipulation, inflation by you setting it up in the right way on the blockchain. And then even for laws and for contracts, you can use smart contracts. So not everything has to be up to interpretation, to a court of law, for example. Certain things can be very clear and can be made trustless. And you can also provide the structure for society in a way where there's not a streak of new laws being passed continuously by a department or by an arm of the government, which no one really observes or controls, which is just either unelected people or people elected through a corrupted process, which then make all the decisions for all the people in the society. So you have plenty of ways, maybe not to do it in the perfect way, but definitely do it in a better way than what's currently done everywhere else on the planet, and better than what has been done throughout history.
And how do you secure investors or members' money? And what happens in case of failure or bankruptcy, as many millionaires has experienced some loss?
You never want to have a single point of failure. That's the main key where I have seen other projects fail or other projects lose the money of the investors. And there was always one vulnerability which was exploited, which killed the entire project. So it sounds easy, but all you need to do is not build something which has a single point of failure, which means you have to have different silos and be prepared for things to go bad. You have to be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. And the big issue here is that most people who build companies, they are not prepared for the worst. They don't even think about it. So we had so many interviews with founders and with teams who want to raise money and sometimes have raised tens of millions of dollars, and they don't even know what the terminology fiduciary responsibility means. They haven't even thought about an exit strategy, which means if your exit strategy is not part of your pitch, then you don't tell the people who you're asking to invest into you don't tell them how they get their money back. You're telling them, invest in me today, but I don't have any plans to return the investment. What the fuck is wrong with the fucking world? Did all those shit projects even get funding? They don't even talk about the main thing, which is the key interest of the investor. I give you money today. What can you do for me? When do I get my money back? And they don't even touch on it at all, because the market has become degenerate, and this software, every fucking somewhat semi-looking project gets funding. So the way you secure funds, not have a single point of failure, have contingencies in place, and what we're going to have now in the Central Asset Exchange, have collateral in place. Collateral which is not controlled or influenced by a third party. Collateral which whoever put the collateral in place, they can't just liquidate and intransparently use for illegitimate transactions. So, which means, for example, without saying names, if you look at the biggest crypto exchanges, even if you look at the monetary system of certain governments, there's no transparency whatsoever with how much money actually gets put into circulation, what happens with the money that's apparently not in circulation, where the assets are which supposedly back the things which are supposed to have value, and there's no actual governance in place and no transparent audits of anything. So from day one, the Central Asset Exchange is prepared to go public. In order for you to go public, you have to be 100% transparent with every single thing. Everything has to be 100% compliant. So instead of doing it like all the other projects out there who go onto the Seychelles or the Cayman Islands to incorporate the company and circumvent all the regulations, we actually cater to that because we know that's necessary. We have to do the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing. So it's all about transparency, accountability, and making sure that we make an example of always operating not with what's required, but going above and beyond to do so much more than what's required, where we become the prime example of how things should be done. Where the regulators look to us and they say, you know, what these guys are doing, this should be a regulation, and not the other way around where someone else does something and then they say, oh my God, they do something which needs to be regulated, and then they have to come up with a law to keep you from doing something wrong. We want to do it the opposite way, where we lead as an example for regulators, where they can look at us and say, hey, this is exactly how business should be run. So we will put this in writing and make other people and other companies adhere to this.
And how to diversify portfolio?
So I think what we will see in the next couple of years, and it has already started, we will see a transition from traditional assets to digital assets. So everything which you see today is going to get tokenized, and it's going to become a part either of a private ledger or of the public blockchain. And ownership will no longer be determined by paper or on the stock exchange. It's all going to be 100% digitalized and on some sort of a ledger or blockchain. And this is where the transition is going to happen, which also means that the importance of certain traditional assets is going to diminish, and whoever holds the control over digital assets, whoever is the main custodian, asset manager, facilitator and platform, this institution, this entity is going to have a significant amount of impact and influence on the future. I'm not interested in buying gold or silver as assets per se, and the level of diversification vastly depends on how much money you have to invest and what your intentions of those investments are. So let's say you have less money to invest, then your main priority probably is not going to be sustaining and de-risking the money which you have, but it's about creating hopefully exponential returns for the money which you can currently invest. So you're probably going to be more willing to accept higher risk, but also aim for higher returns. If you're already, let's say you're a billionaire and you are about de-risking and preventing your money to be devalued, and to give you a good example of this, some people think having the money in the bank is a good idea. Over the past, you will have to look up the statistics properly, but I think over the past 100 years, the dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power, which means if you just kept your money in the bank, you almost lost all your money. The number is still there, but how much the money is worth has become 96% less. So when you talk about securing your portfolio and about diversification, if it's about making sure that your money is still going to be worth something in 5 or 10 years, it might not even be with the intent of, let's say you have $1 million. It might not be the intention of the $1 million still be $1 million in the future. When everything goes bad and you have a depression, then you will be super happy if the $1 million is going to be $100,000 in 10 years. If everyone else hits zero and they have nothing, then you are happy that you still have some assets which are a representation of $100,000. Because then if the standard of the whole world has completely evaporated, you're still going to be much better off than everyone else. So it's not about just the number itself. It's about having the most in any possible scenario, which means diversification is, if your intention is about securing your capital, it's about which things are the least likely to become obsolete, to lose their value, and how can I, if I still want to hold on to cash, or if I still want to hold on to traditional assets which potentially become obsolete in the future, but maybe currently have a benefit or maybe currently are more readily acceptable or accessible or liquid, then those assets which potentially can lose all of their value in a heartbeat if something goes wrong in the economy, how can I balance that with high risk assets where if the economy goes wrong or if something develops in a different way, then at least there's a chance that these assets are going to take off and balance some of the losses which I make somewhere else. So it's a complex topic because it depends on your intentions and how much capital you have, but there's a different solution for each individual investor depending on their goals and ambitions.
Because this change is coming, we don't know how many years we need in order to see this full paradigm or transition. So what advice can you provide to listeners who want to achieve financial independence and, for instance, follow your footsteps?
See, financial independence comes not necessarily just from having money. Financial independence, let's not call it financial independence, because let's say you are a doctor who works for a hospital and you make 200K per year. You might think that this guy is financially independent, but if he doesn't comply with whatever the hospital demands of him, a good example is what happened over the course of the past couple of years, where people working for hospitals had to do certain things for them not to lose their jobs. You're not free. You might have some money, but you don't have enough money to stop working, and you are dependent on your employer, and you have to continue to do what they want you to do, even if these actions are not in your own best interest. So it can't just be the money which makes you independent and which truly provides you with freedom, because then there's some other guy in Thailand with a backpack living from $100 per month, and this guy is more free than the doctor of 200K. So it can't just be the money. So the true freedom comes from the competence which you have as a person and with the comfort which you have in your environment. Meaning, for the doctor to be comfortable, he can't just go into the jungle in Thailand. He has to have a certain income to retain the comfort of his lifestyle. The guy in Thailand doesn't need to make more money than he does because he's comfortable with the lifestyle which he has. That is only sustainable until something goes bad, until the guy needs medical attention or has some other emergency where it's about using money to reduce the risks, or maybe there's a war and he has to get off the country, then he can't afford the plane ticket. So the comfort is also something which can quickly turn into a big risk. But the dynamic for freedom is different for different people. The main thing, as a takeaway for everyone who's listening, is in order for you to be free, you need to be competent as a person and valuable to the marketplace. That's the easiest way for you to actually be free. Because if everyone wants to work with you, if everyone is willing to pay you to do something for them, then it doesn't matter if they like you or if they don't like you, if you adhere by whatever someone else wants you to do. If you're so important that you're irreplaceable, then you're going to be free, because then people will pay you no matter what. And if you are so competent that you can always take on a job which is going to be of relevance to someone else, that also means that even if you lose everything today, well, you can just start off again from scratch tomorrow. And that's what's making you free, because that means, let's say you have a huge opportunity which is right in front of you, and then you have to walk on eggshells to not fumble the opportunity, and then it fails. Someone who knows that he was not deserving of this opportunity is going to be devastated for the rest of his life. But someone who knows that he worked and qualified to have this opportunity, and because that's the way it is, he's going to have a continuous stream of opportunities presenting themselves to him. He's not going to be devastated by missing out on one of them. Yeah, it's really important to understand it's not just about the money. Money is a very important part of financial freedom, but this freedom only comes as a result of you becoming someone who's valuable and out of you growing as a person. And your financial development is always going to be reflective of your personal development. So without you becoming someone who's more capable and competent, you will not just start to make more and more money. This is not how the economy works, and it's not how the world works. You have to work on yourself, and then your bank account is going to catch up. But again, don't make this one thing, don't make a number your goal, but make the goal of becoming a person that can handle everything, that's absolutely content with who they are, and always still aspired to grow and do more.
That's good.
And to give you a better example, the easiest way to break free and to start to become more independent is to build up another income stream. And the easiest way to build up another income stream is to start to sell a service. And even if you don't know anything which you could offer right now, go on different freelancing platforms, check out what clients are looking for. And let's take the example of building websites. You go on YouTube, you put in how to build a website, you watch the 10 most popular videos, then you go back onto the freelancing platform, you take any of those job offers where someone describes specifically what they want, and then you just do exactly that and try to deliver the result for this client, which is not actually your client, but take this as a test of whether or not you're competent enough yet to deliver for someone else. And it's going to take you a while. You're going to have to go back to YouTube. You're going to have to research exactly which platform they wanted to use. You have to become an expert in actually doing that for them. But after you did it, now you have the proof in action already that you're capable to do it. So now there's no problem in you approaching someone else. And then you can go to them and tell them, hey, see, I just created this website. I can do the same for you. I'm willing to work for you for free, and I don't demand any money from you for doing this. But I would be very appreciative if afterwards you would leave a review for me so that other people have the opportunity to see that I'm actually capable and that I have the best intentions to always deliver the very best result. And it's important to understand that in order for you to become financially independent, you can't be so arrogant that just starting out, you already want people to pay you. When you go to school, you also don't expect the teacher to tell you. And the first couple of clients which you're going to have, these clients are a learning experience for you. And actually, you should be paying them for them to allow you to have the opportunity to do work and to become more valuable and to feel important. And once you've done this a few times, once you've built up a reputation, let's say you have this client where you did the work for free, then after he's happy, you can go to him and tell him, hey, since you've been so happy with the work which I did for you, who are the 3 people who come to mind who would also need a new website, who would be happy for you to refer them to me? And then out of those 3 people, maybe one of them becomes the next client. And a client who was a referral, is always easier to convince. He asks less questions and he's going to pay more. So the referral clients, the sooner you get used to always asking for referrals, the better it's going to be. And you will also realize by looking for new clients, you will fail a lot because your approach initially is bad. And the reason why your approach is bad is because you don't understand copywriting and you don't understand sales. So by you going through the process of learning a skill, which you then want to sell to someone else, you will be challenged with having to learn 2 new skills along the way, which is great because you don't just want to be someone who's good at one thing and can't do anything else. You also want to go over the hurdle of putting into YouTube how to do copywriting, what's important in copywriting, understanding human psychology. So the reason that it's more complex is not something which makes it less desirable. It should make it more desirable for you because all the other people out there, they have not put in the work to actually become good in everything that it takes for you to even do the work for someone. So the more difficult, the more hardship involved, the better. The higher the barrier of entry, the better for you because the less competition you will eventually have.
We live in times where almost all knowledge is accessible to everybody. That's super unique because our parents did not have this chance, so we need to use it. Can you name one book that had a profound influence on your mindset and approach, but it cannot be 10x rule book?
To be completely honest with you, I think most people, they should not read. they should take action first. Because reading is procrastination. No matter what the fuck you tell yourself, if you start to read a book, you're procrastinating. Reading is not taking action. So with you now starting to read a book, which I'm going to recommend, it's just going to keep you from actually doing something. You can start reading once you have some success, once you see that you are actually becoming of value to society. Then you can start reading, because then that's going to add on top of what you're building right now. But if you just go out there and you start reading and wasting your time, well, then after you finish the book, you're still going to sit there with nothing. Even if you get started, just right now, don't read. If you're just about to get started, then do exactly what I just told you. Go onto different freelancing websites, Upwork, Fiverr. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if people tell you if they are saturated, because the truth is there are no good people out there. We've been looking for good people. We've been looking on very different platforms. We've been looking through our personal networks. There are not that many good people out there. It's very rare that you meet a superstar. It's really, really rare. So it doesn't matter how saturated the market is, how many people are looking for jobs. If you know how to position yourself and how to sell yourself, it doesn't matter how many other competitors are there. So a book which ties into that, which might be useful, but don't take it as a crutch. Don't say, I have to read this book first. No. Take action first, and you can read the book along the way. It's not either or. A really good book is called Pitch Anything. That's a good starter of how to position yourself and how framing works. And this is good for your personal life, for your business life. It's good to understand how the art of framing actually works, how you have to position yourself, and when you are in an environment where someone else's frame is stronger than yours. So an interesting example would be if you meet the president and the president tells you whatever to do, you're going to do it because he's the president. So you're in his frame. But if the president goes to the doctor and the doctor tells him, open your shirt, he's going to do what the doctor tells him to do, because now he's in the doctor's frame. And it's very interesting to understand the different frames in society, where depending on the environment and depending on who has the more leverage in a business deal, for example, one of the person is going to be in the other person's frame. And many times what you see when two strong frames come together, it's a clash of frames. And then it's about who is better in communicating to put the other person in their frame. And it's then the person who has the leverage in the negotiation. And this framing is very relevant for you when you start to approach potential clients, because every other freelancer out there will always be in the frame of the client, always. I think I've never had an interview with anyone who put me into their frame. But I had plenty of interviews where, even interviews with investors, where normally the project comes with the head in the hand and asks someone else for money, where I was in the call and the investor was in my frame. Because I made very clear that we have plenty of other investors who want to invest in us. So why you? What can you do for me today? Why would I pick you? Why are you better and more valuable than all the other investors? What can you do for me?
Yeah, okay. And the last one, what advice would you give to your younger self?
See, the problem is, if I would have spoken to my younger self, that person wouldn't have listened to the advice which I had to give. It's not the absence of information or knowledge which keeps people from being successful. It's delusion and arrogance. And it's specifically the illusion of knowledge which keeps people from taking action to improve their lives. So there's nothing which I could have told my younger self, because I just got, not sure if I want to call it lucky, but I just got lucky that at some point I was backed so much into a corner where I was so desperate that there was no other option than to look for an alternative path, to look for something that's outside of the system. And before that happened, I wouldn't have been capable to listen to anyone. And once I was backed into that corner, then I had to find my own way somehow, to get access to all the information. Because if I wouldn't have gone through this process, then I wouldn't know how difficult it is for everyone who's listening. Then it has only gotten worse because now you have more information available, but you also have infinite distractions available. So just because the information is there doesn't mean that you will ever find it. And that's why I have created the university, and that's why we do those podcasts. Because here, everything I say is something which I would love for my younger self to have access to. So at some point in time, I would have loved for a video like this to come across my timeline, and then I would have gotten tangible, actionable steps which I can take to get what I wanted. Or maybe just the advice of wanting more for yourself. Where you as a listener, where you are at this exact moment, what exactly you need to hear right now. Do you need the talk about motivation first, or do you need the tangible steps while you already take action? Everyone has different stages, and the best I can do is to create content which addresses every single point, and whoever is responsive to this specific point at that moment in time, they will be able to take it and improve their lives, and then come back, watch the next video which caters to the next need which they might have, and then step by step they can fill all the gaps which they have. They can be under the right guidance, they can get exposure to the right material, they can have someone who points them into the right direction. And this is probably the biggest thing which has been missing in my life. They can come into our community and they are immediately for free, without paying anything, in an environment where there are other people like them. And you still have to be the lone wolf and fight the battle in real life on your own. But at least online, you have people to relate to. You understand other people are doing the exact same thing. There's someone else in the community who is exactly like you and is already farther ahead than you. So literally, the only thing you have to do is follow those people's steps, ask them how they did it, and you will realize that it's possible. I think the biggest problem which I had is that I didn't believe that it's possible. And it took me, I still remember it. It was at the second seminar of Dan Peña, where there was another German guy who was very, very successful. And he was fed up with how little he has achieved. And he had achieved so much more than me. And I thought, oh my God, okay, now I get it. Okay, now I really have to start pushing. And I think I was waiting for this moment for so long, to where it finally clicked for me to actually get it and to wake up. And I know this is something which we can provide in the university. And as an addition to that, we have the paid program where we have mentorship groups, where you have a group which is led by a mentor who holds you accountable, and then all the other people in the group hold you accountable as well. And it sounds awful because everyone hates accountability, but it's a guarantee that you will succeed, because you have no problem with letting yourself down. But those other people, they will not accept you letting yourself down and you letting them down. And you might feel comfortable letting yourself down, but you will feel at least some discomfort by letting other people down. And that's the best possible scenario which you can have, because now you have positive peer pressure and you feel the pressure and the need to continue to do something that's good for you. Nothing better in the world than this, because that's a guarantee for you not to give up.
Thank you so much. It was amazing time and I learned a lot. I'm sure that audience too. So I wish you best of luck in your hard work, and I hope that you will build and fulfill your dream in the future.
Thank you, Mario.